Okay, so good morning, everyone. Again, delighted to have you all here for this Design and Action webinar when we look at gender intelligent financial services and how they've been designed in Mozambique and India. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping points. Please use the chat. We'd love to see you introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, who you're representing, share your LinkedIn if you want. And we'll also use the chat for anyone to submit any questions that any burning questions that they have. We'll certainly have a Q&A session for the audience. So use the chat. I think that you all will have seen earlier this year, FinEquity produced a gender intelligent, a knowledge guide to gender intelligent design. And this webinar is going to draw on that guide. So we'll look at, within the guide, we looked at, why should we design gender intelligent financial services? How do we carry out user research and customer segmentation? And then principles and methodologies for financial services for women. So this webinar really stems from that resource guide, and I'll share that resource guide in the chat just shortly. Drawing on this guide, let's think about today's participants, and I'm very excited to have both Ash and Win here today. Both of these organizations are improving economic empowerment through women's entrepreneurship. Both are looking at lending, but through completely different parts of the process. And both are using gender intelligent design to improve efficiency and remove barriers to business. So first today, we're going to hear from Nirza Fumo, who's the Senior Business Advisor at WIN, Women in Business Mozambique, which is the TechnoServe program. Now, Women in Business helps women-owned businesses grow incomes through better access to products and services by addressing gender inequalities in the SMEs. And then we're going to hear from Hannah Ashv. So Hannah is the Director of Impact at Developing World Markets. Developing World Markets is an impact investing firm which is focused on social, environmental, and economic progress in emerging markets. One of Developing World Markets investments has been in Ashv, which is a non-banking financial company in India. Ashv empowers MSMEs and small businesses in India with flexible, collateral-free financing. And I'm delighted today that we have Kiran Agarwal Todi, who is the CFO of Ashv, and she is going to be discussing Mancha, which is a product through Ashv which focuses on women. So I'm really excited to have everyone here. It's a great lineup of panelists. We're going to hear about the design processes of both WIN and Ashv and how they gained an understanding of their customers, how they designed the products and services that they have that really spoke to women, and how they implemented these services. So without further ado, let me hand over the mic to Nirza in Maputo, and I will put myself on mute. But welcome, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. As Kiran said, my name is Nirza Fumo from WIN TechnoServe, and I'll be presenting you designing business solutions that benefit women micro entrepreneurs in rural and peri-urban areas. WIN is a 5-year program, and it is implemented by TechnoServe. And this program objective is to unblock WIN and WIN opportunities for private sector who engage low-income micro-entrepreneurs in their business in order to develop them social and economically. I'll ask to jump to another slide, please. Thank you. And our objective of the program is to unblock opportunities for private sector who engage low-income micro-entrepreneurs in their business in order to develop them social and economically, either supporting the private sector, designing and or trying new business model. For the financial services specifically, we issued a call for proposal for to microfinance institutions to submit projects, ideas that will financially integrate this target group, and Africa Works won it. They won it because Africa Works is an MFI that operates in financial inclusion by providing credit in rural and peri-urban areas of Mozambique as a way to empower vulnerable populations, especially women. They do have about 60% of women clients. So together, WIN and Africa Works designed the migrating of loan repayments from cash to mobile money. Yeah, and what we did, we identified the gap for women micro-entrepreneurs and obviously for men too. Please, can you move to another slide? Yes, so Africa Works loans are made through mixed groups to about 10 people, and this was given in cash and allocated to a group, although the money is given individually. The loan repayment was made as well in cash and has to be in person and as a group. On side of Africa Works gaps, the loan officer had to carry large sums of money for loan meeting sessions. And on the repayment day, he had to carry back the money with him or her. And then they had to waste part of the day queuing in the bank to make the deposit. All these issues led to liquidity problems in the Africa Works bank accounts for future loans. And on the women micro-entrepreneur sides, while having access to loan, they had to carry the cash on the day of the loan. And at the same, in the other way, on the day of the repayment, they also had to carry cash to do the repayment, leading to insecurity and lack of confidence issues for the micro-entrepreneurs. And on the repayments, they had also to travel long distance to meeting place, leading to transportation costs and time. And they had to close their business or leave them with minor children, leading to loss of money and reduced security. And until all members of the group were present, the meeting could not start, leading to waste of time. So what was the solution when we identified those gaps? Please, can you move to another slide? Yeah. So the first stage, Africa Works did by itself. They did the migration from loan disbursement from cash to bank account disbursements. So they encourage all their clients to open bank accounts. So all the loans were made through a bank, but other issues remain. The issue on how to manage the cash repayments with the loan officer, and also the bank liquidity problem remains. So came the stage 2, and the stage 2 came with WIN support. So the idea was then to do another migration from cash to mobile money low repayment model. So in addition to the setup for the system linkage for repayment through mobile money, which can accommodate any other mobile money operator, we started with M-Pesa, that is one of the mobile money operator here in Mozambique. The project focused on understanding and integrating women in using the platform through studies. We did baseline, midline, and endline to assess female users' perspective on the usefulness of the digital loans and their understanding of the technology. And at the same time, to measure impact of the change for the clients, especially for women. And then we developed the mobile money training module in use of the technology and how to make reimbursement using mobile money for the trainers that those trainers were the loan officers, and for the clients with comprehensive language, more illustration, less text to be suitable for all clients, especially for women. And then came the deliver training sessions, that this training is delivered on the day that the group received the loan, and then is reinforced in all repayment sessions so that all the beneficiaries could gain confidence. So, and then we started a pilot. Africa Works conducted a pilot to test the loan repayments through mobile money for 6 months. And those repayments were made all sessions with the loan officers, so that all the women could train and use the platform and could gain confidence and could receive the support to use the platform by themselves and doing the repayments. Till now, they're still doing some repayments with the presence of loan officers for those groups that still have difficulties in using technology. And each new cycle of repayments of loan, the Africa Works are doing the trainings. Even if it is for the same group that are doing a new loan cycle, they redo the training as well. So on stage 3, we did some improvements. And in these improvements, we introduced the reminder SMS for clients for better control of loans and also to remember the payment days in order to increase credibility of the model. Because as people used to have the money with them, they used to control their money physically, and now they understood that they could control as well in a digital form. And we noticed that in implementing these pilots that are room to more improvements. For instance, regions with problems such as lack of mobile money agents, float on agents, network, internet, or bank could speak to cash reimbursements, or they could use other mobile money operator. So it seems that we can, other projects, other programs can support those MFIs in improving this model. And then came the impact after we have this, all these pilots. And all groups from Africa Works up to end of June 2022, all around 900 Africa Works groups were trained in mobile use and repayment, of which 58% are women. And almost 3,000 women were repaying using mobile money. And 63% of those 3,000 of this number are the total clients, are 63% of total clients repaying using mobile money. And then we had another gain that was on time and mobility. Women micro-entrepreneurs do not have to close business to make the loan repayment. They can do from wherever they are without the need to go to the group and do the repayments. And finally, they increase the digital inclusions. Clients learn to do more transactions by way of mobile money platform. For instance, prior to the pilot with WIN, only 2% of female and 3% of male clients of Africa Works were repaying loans using M-Pesa. And at the end line, over 80% of those clients surveyed reported having made at least one loan repayment to Africa Works using M-Pesa. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nirza. That was fantastic. It's so great to hear about WIN's work. I'd now like to hand over the mic to Hannah Ashv and Kiran Agarwal Todi.
Thanks, Kitty. Should we start?
Yes, go.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'll keep my portion brief and make sure that we get to hear most from Kiran from Ashv. But Daniel, if you could put up the DWM slide, I'll just give a quick introduction to Developing World Markets, or DWM. I'm Hannah Ashv, the Director of Impact for Developing World Markets. We are an impact investor exclusively in emerging and frontier markets, investing through private debt and private equity. And we've got about 80 current portfolio companies in about 30 countries. For most of our history, the majority of the end clients, the end borrowers and other types of clients of those investees have been women. And this is a result of working with companies that are focused on closing the financial inclusion gap for women. But we've come around to wanting to take a deeper look at how companies more holistically integrate not just kind of those outreach metrics, but more holistically how gender and power dynamics are integrated into various business processes. So we partnered with Criterion Institute this past year to design an assessment tool that would evaluate gender and power dynamics specifically for inclusive financial institutions, and we applied it with 8 private equity portfolio companies, of which Ashv Finance is one. So the 4 business processes that we looked at were product and channel design, which is probably the piece most directly related to this webinar topic of gender intelligent design. But I think that there are also elements of loan origination, credit assessment and servicing, and then even governance and management, so sort of internal dynamics of the institution that are relevant for design as well. And across those, we looked at access, alignment and incentives, and decision-making, which are sort of the 3 power dynamics of the 7 in Criterion's framework that we determined to be most relevant for inclusive finance. And we ran this assessment process and then came up with a set of kind of findings and recommendations. I won't say too much more about it for right now, since there's a lot more content to get to from Ashv, but on the left, the image there is a public report that we produced that later on during the Q&A, I can share a link in the chat and you can look more in depth into the findings. So we wanted to, really highlight the interesting gender intentional design elements that we've seen from Ashv that we, that we've worked with them on as well. So we're excited for Kiran to share more about that now. Kiran, I'll turn it over to you. Kiran Agarwal Todi is the Chief Financial Officer of Ashv Finance, and she is going to present about the Mancha loan product in particular, which is a women-focused loan product from Ashv in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks, Hannah and Catherine, for giving this opportunity to Ashv and inviting us to present ourselves on this forum. So I will move to present Ashv Finance to the audience here. So request Daniel to move to the next slide. So for about Ashv, we are a tech-led NBFC, and our vision is to power the big ambitions of small businesses. We have branches across geographies in India. So our target is to cover as many geographies as possible. So currently we have about 38 physical branches and sourcing centers spanning across 150 centers in India. The focus remains on small and emerging businesses, and with definitely focus on women entrepreneurs. Mission is to finance the underbanked but deserving business owners through customized lending solutions led by integrity, enabled by innovative technology, and powered by customer service. What we have put on this slide is some of the women profiles where we have lent to them working capital loans so that they can continue with the business and increase the span of their operational activities. So these are 2 industries. These are just sample industries where we have lent. And what comes out of this profile of customers is that there is 100% women employment in both these industry level organizations. So one is a job work, a manufacturer of garments, where we see 100% sales force being women. And the other one is again a manufacturing institute where they make candles, handmade candles. And here as well, we see 100% women employment. So the focus on these business loans was women empowerment through employment for them. We move to the next slide. Here, what I would like to give you is a bit of view on Ashv Finance in terms of the numbers. I've already talked about the branch network. However, also what I would like to focus is we are one of the few NBFCs which grew during COVID times. So from an AUM of 379 crores in March 2019, we are currently at 891 crores of AUM. That is a compounded annual growth rate of 46%. We've seen 20x growth in customers. So from about 442 customers, which we served in March 19, we are currently at 10,000 plus customers in September 22. Out of these 10,000 customers, what we have is 3,500 customers who are women entrepreneurs. And this is through our mainframe business loans. In our portfolio, we have 30%, 35% of women entrepreneurs whom we have funded. And if we were to look at portfolio from the co-applicant point of view, so women who have come along with their male counterparts to seek a loan in a business where they are partnering with one of their male family members or otherwise, we see a penetration of about 70% of women in the loan segment that Ashv has done so far. What I'm going to talk about here is Mansha loans, which we launched sometime in 2020. This was post-COVID, so it's been 2 years. These loans were tailored for women entrepreneurs. When we say Mansha in India, in Hindi, it means as you wish. So the idea behind these loans were that we would tailor make them as per the wish, the need, the financial requirement of the women entrepreneur whom we were focusing on. What we cover under these loans are women proprietors, women manufacturers, traders, and service providers. We do offer a discount of 1 to 2% in the rate of interest from the regular business loans to the women folks. The ticket size here ranges anywhere from 50K to 3 lakhs INR, which equates to $500 to about $3,500. And what is it that is must for women to have to qualify for these loans from Ashv Finance is 1 to 2 years of banking history. They should have a proper place of business from wherever they are conducting the operations of the entity, the proprietorship from where they are operating. And they need to have a registered trade license with them. So it is either a trade license in India or a license under the SHOP Act. We face certain challenges in this product, and that was clearly in terms of the uptake of this product during its pilot launch in 2020 and early 21. We went back to the drawing board. There was an analysis carried out after discussion with the on-ground sales force and the credit teams in branches. What we realized that we were using our existing distribution channel for these loans. And in India, for business loans, the distribution channel is significantly coming from the connectors, the large-scale DSA teams. And these connectors and these mediators, they had gender biases. So what we also realized that we'll have to change our marketing strategy for these kind of loans. So we plan to get into partnerships. We are already working on it. And that is what will help us increase our outreach to the women whom we want to cater through these Mansha loans. The third thing that we are also looking at is whether there is a possibility of relaxing some of the credit norms. Something like banking history, maybe if not about 2 years, maybe could we look at just about 6 months. in terms of place of business, where we see a challenge where many of these women entrepreneurs carry business from their place of residence. So whether we could also replace the need for having a place of business to having a registered place of residence, which could be in their own name or which could be a rented apartment. So we are working closely with the credit team and the ground sales team to see how we can focus on these loans and how we can have a larger network of women getting covered under Mancha loans. Our focus on women remain not just as a part of the Mancha loan or at Ashv level, but also at the group level. We are a part of the Aavishkaar group, which is committed to the cause of gender equity. The group has taken a bold challenge to have a perfect record, which is about 50% on gender ratio, and which would include at all levels, so board seat, leadership teams, including CEOs of various subsidiaries, associates, and investee companies. And this target they have set for themselves is to be achieved by the end of year 2030. Ashv Finance is currently at a gender ratio of 20% across all levels of employment. And we have set ourselves for a target of 40% and targeted this to be achieved in the next 3 years. Ashv is also deliberating an idea of having an all-women branch to demonstrate our commitment towards women growth and focus. And we are targeting to have that in the next 2 years' time. I think that is from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kiran. That was very, very interesting. I wanted to remind everyone that we will be sharing these slides after the presentations, after today's webinar. We'll be sharing them along with the webinar recording. So you'll have another chance to look at them. But if you do have questions, please do share them in the chat. You can see 1 or 2 coming in. But to start off, I have a few questions for you. And this is a question for both Nirza and for Kiran, but maybe we'll start with Nirza. And I'm interested in your design process and thinking about how you felt at the start of the design process. Were there any assumptions that you held about your customers that were proved incorrect through the design stage? Like, were there things that surprised you about that? Nirza, how did that fit with Win?
Yeah, we had one thing that surprised us because one of our assumptions was, although the mobile money loan repayments using mobile money would support on the security issue, mobility, and so on, but at the same time, we were thinking that as the loans were in groups, that probably the groups will be dissipating along with this new technology. But instead of that, the default rate of the Africa Works reduced a lot. Now with this platform, all the groups are repaying on time, and some of them are repaying early than the dates that are proposed to today are repaying. So for us, this one's something that surprised all of us. Yeah, thank you.
Great, it's very interesting. And how about you, Kiran? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, yeah. So what we were trying to achieve is to cater to the gap, the funding gap that women in general face in India. On one side, we have the microfinance lenders who say target loans for women, which is less than about $500. And on the other side, we have very formal lenders who even go beyond, say, $5,000 in India. The gap that we saw was between these two limits, and which is not a very, very formal industry. So these women would not be filing taxations on their income. They would probably not be maintaining proper set of books of accounts, but what they have is they have a banking history. They maintain regular books of accounts, handwritten books of accounts, which can be assessed and reviewed. So the idea was to basically cater to this gap in funding for women, where they are focusing on small businesses.
And let me follow up now that you've got the mic, Kiran, with another question. You talk about 90% of women entrepreneurs in India having never had finance from a formal financial institution before. And with the Mancha loan, suddenly women can borrow up to almost $3,500 US dollars. So assuming that they repay these loans and they grow their businesses, do you plan to think about products and services that will serve them on their ongoing financial journey? Using what you've learned in the design phase. Is that something that Ashv has thought about for the future?
Yes, certainly. So we do plan to use this data for tweaking the product every 6 months. So there is a lot of feedback that we see from the ground coming in and from our experience of these women loans. And in addition to that, these are working capital loans. So the need for the loans continue to be there once they have repaid. What we have also experienced is that the collection efficiency on these loans, on the women loans, is as high as 96%. And that really very well connects to the global study, the research paper which has been issued by Institute of France on women development. So we do consider giving these women the next set of loans, and we also plan to keep tweaking the requirements. So once they have a repayment track record with the company, the next set of requirements is definitely relaxed for them.
Excellent, excellent. And just switching gears slightly, I'd actually like to see if Hannah can just pop back in so I can ask her a question about developing world markets, wider portfolio, Ashv, of course, being only one investment. I don't know if we've got Hannah back. Yes, yeah, great.
I'm here.
Great. So thinking across DWM's wider portfolio, can you think about any common areas of opportunity for these financial institutions to better integrate gender intelligent design?
Yeah, I think picking up actually on a couple of threads, since you mentioned kind of accompanying customers on a journey that might start with a microloan and then build into kind of a small business loan and up from there. I think what we've seen in a few of our institutions that are actually evolving in that way, they might have pretty good systems for tracking and adapting to sex disaggregated data inputs when it's about individual customers. So they know how to to kind of count and respond to that. But then when they're shifting to businesses, to lending to businesses, they don't necessarily have their system set up to be able to capture, is this a woman-led or woman-owned business or not? And if, and to make use of that data. So one point would be about actually, as they're growing, as the financial institutions are growing from individual lending to more small business lending, kind of having those management information systems set up to be able to track sex disaggregated data. And then also always the feedback loop, right? So Kiran was mentioning kind of revisiting things every 6 months or so, integrating feedback into the product development. I think we actually see that even when there is, so in some cases, even when there is quite a rich data environment with a lot of sex disaggregated data, it's not always making its way all the way back into gender intelligent design and kind of process development. So maybe there could be, it seems like there's an opportunity for more hypothesis-driven analysis of trends, like starting with the point of, based on what we're hearing, what we're sensing, kind of our general market intelligence, what might be going on in terms of things like loan sizes, repayment rates, and other data points with regard to differences based on gender norms or structural issues or types of businesses that women are running, things mentioned by Nirza as well, their mobility constraints, things like that. And then how could we analyze that with the data we have and then build product design around that? So sometimes, there is that feedback loop, but other times it's a bit incomplete. So those are just a couple of the opportunities that we saw across multiple portfolio companies.
No, that's really interesting. And I'd like to sort of turn the question that I first asked Kiran and Nirza to you about, perhaps assumptions that you held or things that surprised you as you went. I know that this was not necessarily something that developing world markets set out to do. You were just suddenly struck by the fact that there was, a huge opportunity and need to serve women. Were there assumptions that you also held at the beginning of this process as you sort of started off with your developing your portfolio?
For those questions for us, assumptions that we held. I think one assumption maybe that we held that was challenged by this was that was potentially around kind of the staff composition, and that if there are mostly women staff, then that would mean that there's a strong understanding of gender. But actually what we found was gaps in kind of understanding and integration of gender dynamics, even for companies that did have predominantly women staff, or at least a large proportion of women staff. And so I think one thing that we find is that, even in those cases, there's a need for training and capacity building around gender issues of gender dynamics to really shift existing bias. I mean, I think we can sort of talk about the fact that even women have sometimes gender biases or constructs in our minds that may prevent us from really designing in this gender intelligent way. And I think likewise, similar to that, the assumption that if you design a if you design a project specifically for women, that it'll then reach women and it'll all be good. I think what we found, and kind of what Kiran touched on as well, was that taking that concept through to the channel design and not just using the same distribution channels or sales agents or whatever it may be for that new product is really important. So, that kind of carrying that thread through each of the processes rather than just using it at the design stage.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's very interesting. I'd like to turn the mic back to Nirza. And I know that, the loan officers that you worked with were really a pivotal part of the WIN sort of digitization process. And I guess that, I'm keen to hear a little bit more about how you socialize some of these changes, because, for so many women, that leap from tangible cash to digital cash can be a huge sort of leap of faith and quite a scary process. So can you speak a little bit to sort of how that socialization happened around the changes in design and the changes in the financial product itself?
We have here 2 points. The first is the loan officer that bears is the same loan officer through many cycles. We have Africa works as loan cycles of 4 months, and they do have in their portfolio clients that are with them almost all, I think more than 60% are clients that are with them for all those 5 years. And Africa Works before the Africa Works was World Relief Bank. So some of those clients remain with them since they were another institution and still with them till now. So they do have a confidence working with this loan officer, and this person is the main person that socializes all these changes, and support them on what they do. So they have a confidence on what the loan officer are saying. And on other end, we try to also to bring social performance indicators to understand a little bit of what the women would like to have as a form to develop themselves, to improve their skills on working on it. And we also realize on these things that although all the process can be good for the women, but in some areas, people are illiterate and this technology won't fit on them, probably thinking in a vocal app or something, because you can have a good loan officer, but not be possible to use the technology by itself. So this is a thing, I think that is another stage that we need to think about, because they are working in the rural areas and peri-urban areas. Some areas we need to think about on how we will do with this target group illiterate. Yeah.
No, I mean, I completely hear what you're saying. The sort of the level of digital literacy and financial literacy, or digital financial literacy, that women have is just such a key indicator of their financial inclusion and their ability to use products. And I guess turning that over to Kiran, we've got a question here from Arjun Khanna. What was the level of financial and digital literacy of Mancha borrowers? And I should say I'm going to pivot to the questions in the chat now. We've got a few coming in. So thinking about the Mancha borrowers, what was the sort of the level of financial and digital literacy that they had, and how did you sort of incorporate this in the design of the Kiran?
So I would say that the women had a decent amount of literacy, both around financial and use of digital. So in India, the penetration of something like smartphones is significant, even in remote areas. And because of which, what happens that the use of technology has gone up significantly. So any kind of form filling or exchange of information that has to happen either through a system or through email changes, there we see significant interest and knowledge at the women level. In fact, women are a few steps ahead in terms of being more smarter lot even in the remote areas is what I would like to mention. In terms of financial literacy, I think they understand their business really well. They can keep the accounts in their own manner. In a small, we call it khata books in India, very well. But if you talk about the way to maneuver through a loan process or the information to be submitted, that is the area where we see not so much of literacy, and that is where the relationship managers or the loan officers who are there at the grounds come at base. So they are the ones who are able to maneuver through the process, tell them what has to be submitted, how it has to be submitted. And I think that's how they promote the whole process till the disbursement is done to them. And even after that, any kinds of support or follow-ups or repayments is being catered by them.
That's great. I'm hearing two things come out of these two comments. So the last comment by Nirza and this by Kiran is that the role of human beings, so the loan officers, is just still crucial, no matter how digitally able or less able clients are. Human beings are non-replaceable. And secondly, that women are not the same across different markets, as sometimes is assumed. Women are a giant segment. And we've got a question here from Rodrigo Derez, and this is for both of you. If you were thinking about your product, so loan repayments, digitizing loan repayments, or designing a loan product in different markets, what questions would you ask to try and understand what the needs of those markets were, and ensuring that the products or services actually resonated with them. You know, I think it's very amongst implementing partners and financial sector providers, it can be very tempting to sort of treat women as a single group. So when you're thinking about designing for different groups, what are the questions that you would ask to figure out how the product or service should differ? Nirza, should we start with you?
Yeah, I would like first to understand the gaps. We need to understand the gaps, because if it's for low income, they will have a different gaps than the other group. So we need to try. The first thing is, what is the gap? What is working and what is not working? So we can try to see what is what we can address. And other point that we realized, especially here in Mozambique, although those are different public targets, but here in Mozambique, for instance, we realized that the mobile operators are offering a loan for their clients, and they are using the same number to do the loan repayment with the microfinance institution. So when do they have any debts with the mobile operator, they can't put money on that number to do the loan repayment to the MFI. So they use other phone number to do the repayment to MFI. So, and it is difficult to trace the origin of this transaction in the platform. So when it's time to the MFI close their accounts, it's not possible because they can't identify this amount comes from which clients, because they are using different phone numbers to do the payment. So you see a phone number, and with an amount that you cannot connect with any clients. And here in Mozambique, all classes are using, like low income, medium income, are using the same services. So if it is to work with another group, I will try to trace this in a better way. Instead of only being the phone number, it's to be phone number plus the number of the clients that you can triangle, not only with his number, you see. So I would add this, if I had to do with another group, I would add this function on it in this platform.
Thank you. And Kiran, how would you approach this?
So we go back to our loan officers, who are the most important people in the system. What we have done in the past is to get them fill survey forms. So they are asked to go out on the ground in such industrial clusters where they get such proprietors and traders whom they can interact with. And definitely there are a series of questions on these survey forms, which would include not just questions on their businesses, but also as to why would they need a loan, what kind of timelines they would need to repay, what will this loan achieve for them? So whether it is increase in the business scale, or it is just simply financing the working capital cycle, or is it that they would also want to invest into some kind of machineries? So there are varied questions which this loan officer would ask. On an ongoing basis, we have a process of continuous feedback within the system. So that's why if you see our Mansha loan product, from the time it was launched, there have been already some changes that has been made in the credit assessment criteria. So there has been some relaxations which we have done in the form of, say, for example, place of business. So in the case of regular business loans that we do for everyone, equally for men and women, we look at somebody who owns a place of residence or a place of business. But in case of Mansha, we have given the relaxation that the women need not, even if she has a rented property where she is operating this business from, it still qualifies for a loan from Ashv. So this is a feedback which was received from the system 6 months after we launched. So there is a continuous engagement, and we would revisit the product policy every 6 months to do that. And the intention is definitely to increase the penetration on the ground. For us, we've not been very old in terms of this product, so we do not have a large proportion of these women entrepreneurs who have taken the loan repayment. But now we will be seeing that in the next 6 months. So there will be many such customers who would have repaid and then now applied for the second loan.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I'm going to turn now to another question in the chat from Yakuta Fatehi. Can you share a little bit more about the buy-in from leadership, but also the field staff and the middle managers that you have in place for learning and continuous improvement to find insights and evidence the tweaks that you plan to make in the product in the future? Buy-in and acceptance of the processes may be especially useful for the hypothesis-led thought leadership that Hannah mentioned. So you've touched on a number of these things about thinking about different markets. I'm wondering if Hannah, you have anything to say about this, or is there anyone who specifically wants to take this question that hasn't been directed at anyone, but really thinking about, your loan officers, are there other people beyond loan officers that are providing really useful feedback as these products evolve?
Yeah, I think at the institution, at the financial institution level, I would ask Kiran if there's anything to add about getting the buy-in across the different levels of the firm. I think one of the things that came out in the work that we did with the portfolio companies is that even if you, let's say, set targets or quotas or other kinds of things kind of from the top and make them known to everyone, there has to be a strong business case that's communicated about why we're doing this in order for people at all levels to kind of be bought in and execute along those lines. So you can have like initial excitement about a quota or an initiative, but it quickly fizzles out if there's not a real integrated sort of business case from it. So that was kind of one learning related to, let's say, sort of like buy-in, and I think it applies across all levels. But in particular, those field staff and middle managers need to sort of understand why you're doing something new. But yeah, I don't know, Kiran or Nirza, if there's anything to add from your point of view.
Yeah, sure, Hannah, I'll take that up. So the commitment from leadership and from different functions at all levels is very, very high. Being a part of the Aavishkaar group, the focus on gender equality is quite ingrained in the whole system. So there, I do not see any kinds of issues or defocus from that fact. And secondly, it comes very naturally to us in India. Reason being that wherever we see women, it could be the wife, the mother, the sister, or independently herself, getting associated in credit line, the stickiness of the customer in terms of repayment is really, really high. And there is a starking difference between the two. And So it's not just a global study, but it is our own experience on the ground, which makes it very relevant for everyone in the system on the ground to focus on. And there is a lot of discussion and focus that we continue to see from the board. So as a mandate coming from the board to the management and to the organization in terms of gender equality is also very high. So whether it is to do with women focus from a customer point of view, or gender equality, equal representation on the board or at employee levels at every grade, it's quite high.
Thank you. And Nirza, I'll just give the final word to you. Beyond your crucial loan officers, are there other key people within WIN who really are providing important feedback to help improve and streamline design with WIN?
Yeah. Yes, we do have two things. One of our feedbacks that we received as a value of WIN in the group was that we supported them to set up surveys, to implement surveys in fields, and as well, and at the same time, we helped them to establish social performance team and indicators, and it includes a supervisor in the MFI. And include other the branches managers, and it's a mix of different people that used to go to the fields and talk a little bit with the clients to get feedback and to give feedback on what is going on their products and services and what can be improved, and what else they can do to improve socially and not only economically on those clients of them. So not only the loan officer, but a task force that is implemented and is a continuous one. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Well, we've come to the end of our time. I would really like just to pass on a heartfelt thanks to Nirza Fumo of WIN, a TechnoServe project, Kiran Agarwal Todi of Ashv Finance, and Hannah Schiff of Developing World Markets. You've been really, really interesting discussions, and we'll be following this up with the slides from everyone, the recording of the webinar, and if there are any questions that I haven't got to in the chat, we'll certainly be answering them in the follow-up as well. But there'll be a brief survey at the end of this, yeah, thank you everyone for participating, your great questions, and wish you all a great rest of the day and a great afternoon or evening if you're across the ocean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.